models because we're reviewing how those structures together. So we agreed that the temporal bone has many parts of it. Part of it is what articulates with the zygomatic bone. So we agreed that this is the zygomatic process of the temporal bone. Together with the temporal process of the zygomatic bone, they will form this, what we call the zygomatic arch. The zygomatic arch. Are we good? Good. This is the articular tubercle, which will prevent the head of the mandible from sliding forward and dislocating, so it protects you somehow by increasing the articular surface. And this is your mandibular notch or mandibular facet, for the head of the mandible, or condylar facet, condylar notch. All of these are correct names, where the head of the mandible or the condyle of the mandible will articulate to give you the temporal mandibular joint. Are we good? Good. Then if we go behind that, we're going to see the external acoustic meatus, external acoustic meatus or external auditory meatus. We're good? Behind the external acoustic or external auditory meatus, you're going to see this big structure. We call that mastoid, looking like breast, mastoid, right? And then here we have the styloid process. All of this, we're still in the temporal bone. We're still part of the temporal bone. There is a foramen that I did not mention, but we need to know this foramen because it was very hard to see on the pictures. It's the foramen between the mastoid and the styloid. See this one here? Right? Right between the styloid and the mastoid, where I'm putting now the light. Better or worse? A little better. Here's the mastoid, and the styloid is here, right? And so here is the foramen. Can you see the one between the two where I'm putting this? Right? We call that stylomastoid foramen. Stylomastoid, between the styloid and the mastoid. Stylomastoid. That's where your facial nerve is emerging. The facial nerve is emerging from that. Are we good? Yes? Good. So we got the styloid, we got the mastoid, we got the squamous portion of the temporal bone, we got the condylar notch, and we got the zygomatic process of the temporal bone. We're good with that? That's the temporal bone. On the inside, we're going to see this portion here. See this portion, this elevated portion here. That's the petrous part of the temporal bone. All the way towards the end, I'm going to see another dead-end canal, which is the internal acoustic or internal auditory meatus. Are we good? So the petrous part of the temporal bone, and this is the internal acoustic or the internal auditory meatus. Are we good with that? Okay. Then we have few canals here that are worth mentioning. Anterior to the petrous bone, so see where the petrous bone is. This is the petrous bone here. Follow it all the way interiorly here, and you will see a jagged, kind of a jagged structure, a jagged foramen here, and that will be your foramen lancera. Foramen lancera. Anterior to the petrous part, you will have the foramen lancera. Are we good? But in this model I'm holding in my hand, which is not a really good model, you're supposed to have another foramen here, where it shows as halfway hole, right? Can you see that? Over here, at the tip of the petrous bone, it shows a depression which is supposed to be continuous as a hole, but that's your carotid canal, which is supposed to be continuous to the other side, but it's not. Are we good? Okay. Which you can also see on the other side. When I flip it to the other side, you will see it. You will see the carotid canal. Are we good? So the carotid canal is really this. You remember how I told you that the carotid artery is inside, the internal carotid artery is inside the petrous part of your temporal bone. That's why it beats up when you hear the beating when your heart rate is accelerated. Are we good with that? Okay. So that was the temporal bone. Other bones that we need to cover is the occipital bone. It has few features. The first feature is this very high elevation that we can see right in the middle, at the back of the skulls, that's your external occipital protuberance. External occipital protuberance. Extending from it, right and left, we would have the superior nuchal line, nuchal meaning neck, right? Superior nuchal line, and we have another line here, which is the inferior nuchal line. So superior and inferior nuchal line. Are we good? Good. Let's move anteriorly. Then we will have this big foramen, which is foramen magnum. That's where the spinal cord will emerge. And then we agreed that this is the basilar process. And if you feel here, not in this model, you will feel a tubercle that is your pharyngeal tubercle. But you can ignore that since we can't see it. Are we good? But this is the basilar process. Are we good? Again, we agreed that this foramen here, right lateral to the basilar process on both sides, is your foramen lesser. Foramen lesser, which is of no importance. Nothing passes through the foramen lesser. Are we good? Okay, so this is your occipital bone. The only thing left in the occipital bone is this big elevation, and we agreed it's the internal occipital protuberance. This is the external occipital protuberance, and this here is the internal occipital protuberance. Are we good? Yes? Good. Let's go to the anterior cranial fossa, which is this area. This is the anterior cranial fossa. Structures worth mentioning here is this is still part of the frontal bone. Remember how the frontal bone turned backwards to make the roof of your orbit? This is the frontal bone here. But it ends, which you can't see here, it ends, I'm going to draw the line. It ends somewhere like this. Okay? Because this is your sphenoid. This here is the sphenoid bone. So the sphenoid will start here. This is the lesser wing of the sphenoid, and the greater wing of the sphenoid would be like this. It goes like that, and it goes this way. Are we good? Yes? Okay. So, before we get to the sphenoid, we have an elevation here, a very sharp elevation. What we call that the crista galli. Crista galli. Right and left to it, there's supposed to be holes, tiny little holes here, but this is a plastic model. If you dig a skull from the grave nearby, bring it over, and then we can study that. It would be much better than this plastic model. And so we have what we call cribriform plate of that. I told you that we can put a catheter by mistake that we get to the brain, and also infection and stuff. That's an easy route for infection from the cribriform plate of the head. Are we good? Okay. Then we go posteriorly. We're going to start to see the lesser wing of the sphenoid. This is the lesser wing of the sphenoid. And towards the back here, we're going to have this elevation on both sides. What we call that the anterior clinoid with a C, clinoid tuber. Anterior clinoid tuber. These two elevations, by the way, are the posterior clinoid tuber. So these are the anterior clinoid, these are the posterior clinoid. Are we good? The part here where I'm putting my finger comfortably in this fossa here, we call that sella torsica, because it looks like a saddle of a horse, right? So the sella torsica is where your pituitary gland will be sitting. That's why it's very easy to access the pituitary gland for surgery from the nose, because this is the sphenoid right on top of the nose if you go all the way from there. Are we good? Good. This is the sella torsica. The sella torsica will have an elevation. Can you feel the elevation anteriorly on your model? Right? The anterior elevation is tuberculum celli. Tuberculum celli. The posterior elevation there, that is the boundary of the sella torsica. The posterior elevation, we agree, it's the dorsum celli. So tuberculum celli anteriorly and dorsum celli posteriorly. We're good? And this is, of course, the sella torsica. Here is the anterior clinoid process, and you can see here a canal. You see this guy in your model, and this is your optic canal or optic foramen. And you can see why the optic, because if I look through the orbit, I'm going to see what I'm putting through, right? So you can see here, whatever I'm talking is going to almost 90 degrees. I'm going to start still in the sphenoid bone. This is still the sphenoid bone. This is the body of the sphenoid. I'm going to see a hole that otherwise I was not able to see when the skull was like that. It's a skull that you have to, it's a foramen that you have to kill to the skull in order to see this foramen and that one. These are the foramen rotundum. Foramen rotundum. Are we good? Anterior to the foramen rotundum and superior to it, you will see a big fissure. You see, we can't call this a foramen, it's a fissure. Can you see this? Yes? And you can also see it looking into the orbit. It's this fissure here. Can you see this guy? Well, we call that superior orbital fissure. If there is a superior orbital fissure, there must be an inferior orbital fissure. So we have two orbital fissures, but we only can see one from the cranial cavity. We can only see the superior orbital fissure from the cranial cavity. Are we good? Which is this guy, which again is above and anterior to the foramen rotundum. Are we good? Let's go backwards. Still in the sphenoid, this is the greater wing of the sphenoid, all the way towards the tail of the wing. I'm going to see the foramen ovale. Remember foramen ovale, the oval foramen? And then I will have this tiny little one, which is the foramen spinosa. Foramen spinosa. Here, medially, I'm going to see on both sides of the sphenoid, also where the occipital bone is, that is your foramen lacero. These guys here are your foramen lacero. Okay? Yes? Okay. Only thing left on the occipital bone that we did not cover yet, if you go here from the inside, you will see again, this is your foramen magnum. You see this foramen here, right underneath the occipital condyles, we call that the hypoglossal canal. You can see hypoglossal canal here and the hypoglossal canal here. You get that? Yes? Hypoglossal canal. There is another foramen which is in your model shut down, and that's your condylar foramen. But focus on the hypoglossal foramen. We're good? Yes? Okay. Another foramen that we see here, and we will see it still when we flip to the base of the skull, is this big foramen here. Can you see this guy? Which is behind the petrous. It's not anterior to the petrous now, it's behind the petrous, and that is your jugular foramen. That's where the internal jugular will be coming out of your skull. Are we good? That's the jugular foramen. Good with that? Let's flip the skull upside down and let's look at the structures that we can see. So let's start from anterior going back. If you remember, this is the alveolar margin of the maxilla. This is the palatine process of the maxilla. Palatine process of the maxilla. This foramen here is the incisive foramen. Incisive behind the incisives. Incisive foramen. This is just a wire. Wire. Greater palatine foramen. Greater palatine. There's supposed to be a lesser palatine, but you don't see that. Are we good? Okay. Then, moving backwards, this part here, well, let's stay here first with this part. The anterior 2/3, or the anterior 3/4 of the hard palate is made by the palatine process of the maxilla. The posterior portion is made by the palatine bone. You get that? The posterior portion is made by the palatine bone. You get? Attached to it over here, we see the vomer bone. So remember, the vomer bone, together with the perpendicular plate of ethmoid, they are making the bony septum. This here is your vomer. Can you see it? Yes? Okay. Then, now we are into the sphenoid. We're going to see a structure here called pterygoid process. And from the pterygoid process, we have two plates, the medial and the lateral pterygoid plates. Medial and the lateral pterygoid plates, they Then the foramen that we can see here, from this again, you can see that this is the foramen that feel on your lateral there's a lateral sigmoid that the heel of it you can have your foramen and the foramen move. Then here's the foramen lateral. Remember the foramen that is not connected all the way, but it goes through the lateral wall. This is this one. How do we know it? On the side of the wall. And medium to the pile. You're going to realize wherever there is an artery, there is a vein, right? But we don't call it carotid vein, we call it the jugular vein. But the jugular vein will require a big hole for it. And this is what you see here. This is the jugular foramen. We're good? The jugular foramen doesn't only allow the jugular vein, certain cranial nerves also will pass through the same hole, and that's why the shape of the hole is highly irregular when you see it. You know how irregular it is? It's not like single hole, but it's more than one structure passing through. When you get to know the cranial nerve, you will realize 2 or 3 cranial nerves are passing together with the jugular. Are we good? Good. Other structures we see from this angle, we have the thyroid, remember the thyroid process, and the mastoid process, thyroid, the mastoid, and the remember the then we have a foramen, we call the stylo-mastoid foramen. Stylo-mastoid foramen. Are we good? Yeah. Then finally, on the lateral side here, here's the sternum, the thyroid margin, and then the double stuff. And so here is this part here belongs to the parietal, this part here inferiorly belongs to the frontal, and this part here belongs to the temporal. You see this H formation? That is your perion. We're good? Then, what else am I missing? Here's the lateral sigmoid space. Remember the lateral sigmoid space? You're going to see another fissure. See this big fissure here? It doesn't go to the cranium, but it goes to the eye. You can see that. It goes to the orbital chest. And we call it inferior orbital fissure. Remember, we have 2 fissures. If you look into the orbit, you're going to have 2 fissures. See them how they make like an L-shaped structure here? So this is the superior orbital fissure, which connects to the cranial cavity, and the inferior orbital fissure, which will connect to the cheek extension. Are we good? Superior and inferior orbital fissure. The very last thing is the maxilla from the front and the feet from the front, and the whole of the last thing. These are the bones. We agree to that. This is the nasal septum, right? Remember the nasal septum is made by 2 bones. This is the inferior nasal spine. This is part of the nasal right below the nose. And then we have the soul piece part of the spine. We have the inferior nasal contact, and the middle nasal contact, and you don't see the superior one. Okay? You only are looking at the inferior and the middle nasal contact. Okay? This is the infraorbital foramen. We covered that before. Am I missing any of the structures? Probably not. This is it. This is the skull. Other than the occipital condyles, you see the occipital condyles here. And if you remember, underneath the occipital condyles, you're going to have a hole, and that hole is the hypoglossal canal, right in the center of your occipital condyles. Okay?